Welcome back to West Texas View.
Before the break, we were talking with Loretta Fulton about the first book that she wrote. She's a long time journalist and now has just written her second book, again, about West Texas women. And so, Loretta, tell us how Off They Went came about and what it's about.
A couple of years ago, when I had this first book that we talked about, about Virginia Conley, a woman who had read that book, I ran into her at a meeting one day, and she said she had read the book and she had an idea she wanted to tell me about that she thought I might be interested in writing about as well. She had grown up in Abilene, had lived all of her career in California. She and her husband had moved back to Abilene in recent years, and she said one of the first things she noticed when she moved back was that it seemed like every other woman she met had been a pilot back in some years back. These were older women, and she said she just found it fascinating that she had encountered so many women in Abilene who used to be pilots, and just thought it was amazing that there were so many. She just mentioned that to me because she had read my book about Virginia Conley, knew I was interested in biography and local history, and so I listened to her and I said, well, that is interesting. I'd never thought about it. I didn't know that myself. And so I started looking into it, started doing some investigation. She gave me a couple of names of the women she had in mind. And I started there and soon discovered, I developed the same enthusiasm for it that she had when I got into it, and realized not only how many there were, but who some of these women were. A lot of them are very prominent women in Abilene, well known, and fortunately,
and West Texas business women in those days.
Yes. One was a lawyer. There were several who were in business with their husbands. Some just flew because they weren't just for fun, but when I got into it, I was fortunate because the Abilene Reporter News, in our files, there was quite a bit of information about them in the files there, and I spent a lot of time, in a lot of hours at the paper going through those files and getting names of the women I wanted to write about, and starting my research at that point.
And so then, when you decided, okay, this is a project that I want to take on, then you had to narrow it down to, because all of a sudden you found that there was a lot of West Texas women who truly had been pilots. So talk to us about some of the women that you narrowed it down to, and what some of their stories were that made them become pilots at a time when that was not the run of the mill, and particularly for the debutante type.
That's right. The first thing I did, I read the stories about who these women were that started this local chapter
of 99.
The 99s organization was started in 1929 in a meeting at Curtis Field on Long Island. In 1929, there were 117 women in the United States who had a pilot's license, and all of them were invited to come to this organizational meeting. 99 showed up, and so they took their name. That's how they got their name, the 99s. Amelia Earhart was elected the first president of this organization. That was in 1929. So in 1956, a group of Abilene women decided they'd start they wanted to form a local chapter of that 99s organization. And they actually received their charter in 1957. So from the newspaper stories, I found out who the officers were who were elected at their meeting in Abilene. And I knew who all of those women were. They were very well-known women in Abilene. I got the names of those, plus some other women who were at the organizational meeting. I ended up focusing on 9 women from that original group that founded this local chapter in
because
Abilene.
They represented the whole ball of wax.
They did. The president is a woman named Ruby Caldwell. She's now Ruby Caldwell Kynard. she and her husband, James Caldwell, started Caldwell Music Company in Abilene. And Ruby flew all over the United States, meeting with band directors. They sold band instruments to school programs in various states. She flew she delivered band instruments. She met with band directors. At one time, her husband, James, also was with a music company in California. They traveled back and forth from Abilene to California, and she flew many of those routes. And so she was elected the president. Beverly Tarpley was an attorney in Abilene with the Scarborough law firm, founded by Dallas Scarborough.
A very prominent,
a very prominent firm
lawyer
in Abilene.
family.
Davis Scarborough was one of the people who hired Beverly to work at that firm in the 50s. His wife, Moselle Scarborough, also was a member of this 99. She was a pilot too. Joanne Elliott, later Joanne Elliott Hamill Funeral Homes in Abilene is quite well known. Joanne was one of the pilots. There were women who just, some of them, their husbands were pilots or they flew for their business. They were maybe not pilots by profession, but they had pilot's license and flew in connection with their business. Some of these women decided they would learn how they just wanted to learn to land the plane in case of an emergency. Then they discovered they loved flying and wanted to do more than just know how to land in an emergency, and went on and took lessons and got their license.
But one of the most interesting, fascinating things in the whole book is that they never changed their demeanor. They were ladies and women first, because they went dressed with their hats and their gloves and their business suits. They never did wear flight jackets.
No, they didn't.
Pants and low heels, and it was always disconcerting to the ground crew. You said when they got off when the doors opened and these fully dressed to the nines women got off of the plane. They
were. In fact, the beginning, the introduction of it, if I can, I'll just read this.
Yeah, let's take a break now and let's come back and read that, because that's my favorite part of the book. We'll be back in just a minute and continue this conversation.
Stay tuned. West Texas View will be right back.